Hey friends, welcome back to Creating Success in the Mess. We're your hosts, Corey and Whitney.
In this show, we help creative entrepreneurs find success in business by living into their highest potential and calling in life.
Hey there, creative friends. It's Corey and Whitney, the best-selling creative artists who sell their own artwork. That's right, even you are a best-selling artist and creative. If you make tumblers and you sell them, guess what? You are the number one, because that's the key. Be number one. That's the whole point of being in business for yourself. Now, for today's topic, we are going to be talking about a very awesome topic. One of my favorite ones. It is creativity. Now, people either got this or they don't got it, right, Whitney?
I think everyone has creativity.
Oh, no. I'm not creative. I can only draw a stick figure. So, whenever we used to run a brick and mortar art studio, we taught people how to paint, how to draw, sketch, pastels, everything, right?
Right.
And one of the things that used to really get under Whitney's skin, it's okay if I tell the story, right?
Absolutely.
All right, well, you're going to come in. You got your part. Is people would come and say, "Oh, well, look here, sweetheart. I can't even draw a stick figure, so I don't know how I'm going to do this painting thing." And you know what? I found it so funny because it would really irritate you.
It would, and I don't get irritated by things very often.
No, but here was the funniest thing. I always felt like that, and it was typically ladies. They always had the best paintings. Like, the whole group would come in, they'd be like wine and sip, or just be like some girls come in to take just kind of like a single oil painting class. And the one that was like, "Oh, I can't even draw a stick figure, sweetheart," they had the better paintings.
Right.
And I figured it out. You know what it is? It's called limiting beliefs. They automatically came in with a limiting belief so that they could lower their standard down to a place that no matter what they walked out with, it was going to be a success. Now, I can kind of see in the short term that might be a good thing. You could put fuel in your car that way, but you're not going to get very far. It's not going to take you very far.
No.
At all.
Well, they would come in with a limiting belief, and it would irritate me. And so then at that point, it was my mission to, basically get rid of that limiting belief. They would come in and they would say, "I can't even draw a stick figure. This is going to be terrible. Mine's going to be the worst one of the group." And I would always say, "Well, the good news is we're not here to draw stick figures, right. So yours might be the best of the group." And then they would be like, "Oh," it totally transformed their thinking. Yeah. So at that point, the limiting belief that they came in telling me that they couldn't do was turned into, well, maybe I can do something, because guess what? We're not drawing stick figures in this class. That's not why you came to this class. You don't need to draw stick figures to put color on a canvas.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anyway, I'm getting fired up.
You're getting fired up, and that's all right. We want to get fired up. And I tell you, hopefully that story there, it kind of fires you up a little bit. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, "You know what? I want to become a more creative person. I want to take the gifts that, that the Father above has given us, and I want to use that. I want to do things with it." Whether you're in business or not in business, or you're side hustling it, the whole idea is that you're creating within yourself. Because that's the whole key, is you have that kind of inner self that you're wanting to kind of bring out, your own thoughts and your own ways of doing things. So,
which is what art is.
Yes.
Art is, you create, regardless if it's art or not, you're creating your interpretation.
Yeah.
Your interpretation of whatever. So it has to come from within.
It does. And I think it's so important, and that's why we're going to address it today on the podcast. We're going to give you 5 things that you can radio in. You can tune your brain into creativity. Now, the 5 things we're going to give you, there's no particular order that you have to follow. And honestly, I think we could go all day with a long list, but at some point we had to say, okay, we can only give 5. And the podcast isn't going anywhere. So, hey, we can take one of these or even more of these later on and talk more about it. And I'll tell you what, if you get a hold of us on our social medias, Instagram and TikTok, you can follow us at businessbuildingmentors.com or Let's Create Art or even Layers of Grace Designs. We got 3 businesses, folks. You can get a hold of us at one of those 3 places or all 3. Hey, DM us and say, hey, I love your podcast about the whole creativity and the 5 things. One of these really worked for me. But hey, Corey Whitney, can I ask a question? Absolutely. You can ask a question. And you know what? We want you to. This podcast is about community. So get on out there, follow us on those social medias, and ask us some questions. We would love to talk about and answer your questions and even mentor you all on our podcast. So, Whitney, you got anything to say before we get to these 5 topics?
No, I think those are really good. Like, I know that, like you just said, we have 3 businesses. Like, we do a lot of things, and I mean, we are creatives at heart. Like, we, like, are all over the place. We, have our creative businesses that are our art businesses. That's what normally people think of when they think creative. But what creativity is not just putting paint on a canvas or on a piece of furniture, or it really doesn't have anything to do specifically with Picasso, like, or any other artist for that matter. Like, creativity is applied as much in our business mentoring, our VA business, our website design, our social media, like, our more technical business. We apply creativity over there as much as we do in what is traditionally thought of as a creative business, where we are actually playing in paint.
Right. And a lot of our students, our clients, because we have an art shop, we have a furniture refinishing shop, we have a VA business consulting, and people are always like, whoa, you can paint fine art. You can refinish this furniture to look brand new, and you can build a website?
Right.
And you're like a marketing mastermind? And we're like, yeah, and like, oh my gosh, how can 1 or 2 people have so many great gifts? And we're like, it's because we're honed in on our gifts.
Right.
There's plenty of things I can think of that I don't do.
Absolutely.
There's lots of things.
I'm not pressure washing.
No, although it does look very satisfying.
It could
But
be.
let's keep it to the satisfying videos, and let's not actually do it, because 3 is enough. But the idea is, if someone says, hey, how do you have 3? Like how does someone have so much? It's called creativity. Mm-hmm. When it comes down to it, at our core of who we are, and, because I was a high school teacher for a lot of years, and I was a teacher, but at my core, that's not who I was. I was a motivator. I was an encourager. That's who I am. That's who God calls me to be. I use that gift in an assignment. Teaching for a season was an assignment. Mm-hmm. Furniture is a season in my life. Mentoring entrepreneurs is a season. It's an assignment. And so we all have these great gifts, but the whole idea is creativity. We've honed our creativity and we're open to it, that alignment. And that's what you're really searching for, is that your true self inside your heart and your soul, right? That's what God really wants, is your soul to be in this, so you can align to what He calls you to be. And when you start getting into creativity, you will naturally begin to go into those elements.
One thing I think also that is a sticking point when you talk about creativity is, the first thing was what I just said. People like to think it has to do with paint or art supplies, and that's not necessarily it. And it's also like what you originally said, like, not everybody has it, but everybody does have it. Sometimes it appears like all over to you. Like, sometimes it is, a little more hidden. So creativity can come and go in your life. So when you feel like you're stagnant, or when you feel like you've hit, like, a spot where you're not progressing, it's maybe because it's time to bring the creativity in. So when you say, like, we are creatives and we have these businesses and, we're aligning, and, that doesn't mean that we're always in the flow of creativity. But when we are in the flow of creativity, then those things that you listed that we do and our purposes or whatever, they just come out in whatever it is that we do. So when you are a teacher, your creativity came out in various ways there. Right. So it's always around and it's always in there. So regardless of whatever you're doing in this season or not, it is there.
Right. So like whenever I was teaching, most people are like, oh, you teach kids how to read, write, whatever. No. And I taught social studies, so it's pretty much anything. But whenever I designed my lessons, I did not design it around memorizing historical facts. I didn't design it around sitting up there and lecturing about historical stories. I designed my lessons to create conversations between myself and groups of students. The idea was, to be different, and I think that's something we need to think about, is how to be different. Because I think when you see people who are different, you're like, they got something going on, right? And the creative element, I think, is what kind of makes them seem different. And so the idea was flipping my classroom into a space and an atmosphere where young people felt confident and safe to share ideas, to ask questions that they typically normally wouldn't be able to ask in a classroom. And that was always my goal.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that it's when they seem like they're different, or they seem like they're doing things differently, or they approach, whatever it is in a unique manner. I think that is them it's essentially kind of like not following the straight line that was laid out for you. It's kind of being open to zigging or zagging or trying this over here, or, so it's not necessarily like, if you feel like, one, fearful, or two, like there is a right path and it's a straight line and you got to get on it and you got to go, your creativity is basically going to be, pushed aside and said, shh, we got to do it this way. Mm-hmm. But it's those people that, do it differently, try these things and pivot, and it's kind of like they're zigging and zagging instead of following the straight line. Right. They're the ones that are essentially harnessing their inner creative in exploring and trying and using different mediums and a new technique, and developing a new skill, or approaching the whatever in a different manner. And we all have that option. It's just, do we want to use it or do we not want to use it? Right. So that's one of the misconceptions I think that is out there. It's typically thought of as paint, and it's not, just, art supplies. And we all have it. Right. We can all choose to use it.
I really like the point that you bring up, and we're going to get to our list here. We will get to the 5 things. We kind of have
to talk about some of these misconceptions of creativity from the get-go.
Well, hopefully right now is what you got going on in your brain is you have you have a little bit of some curiosity, which we're going to get to in a little bit. That's one of these things. But what I really want to kind of get at is observation, because Whitney, you said that it's not just the arts where creativity comes in.
No.
And you can see this in your daily life. Mm-hmm. And so if you're kind of like, we're just going to call the lady Pam. Hi, my name's Pam, and I'm here to paint, and I can't even draw a stick figure. Well, Pam, like, we're going to take that mindset. If you're there, right, if you are far, far on one side of, like, I can't be creative at all, to something you can do is start to be more observant. And if you look at, if I'm being observant in my daily life, look at the people and what they do. So if I go through a drive-thru, whether it's Starbucks, McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, right? I kind of feel like most of the drive-thru workers kind of do the same thing. And it's kind of the same way, right? Mm-hmm. It's take the order, take the cash, get the food, have a nice day.
Yeah,
right?
System, a straight line.
But every so often, you'll get someone on that intercom and you'll be like, whoa, what's with the energy? Right. Shoot. I'm going to go ahead and just upgrade to the chicken nuggets.
That's right.
Man,
she's having a good day.
Right, and it's like, would you like to supersize that? No, it's like, hey, did you know for $1 more, you can get a really great deal and get a sweet tea with these chicken nuggets? Well, you know what? I think that sounds good. And then you're like, wait a minute, I can't even have sugar. What am I doing? right? But it's something, it's the person is different and it's their creative element, right? It's almost like I understand that this is a stepping stone position probably for me, but I'm going to do it the best I can and I'm going to do it with passion. And I know people, I've thought about it, like we're looking for an employee, right? And I'm going through the drive-thru, I'm like, this person is like so good. Are they looking for a job?
Right.
It's like, hey, could you sand furniture and refinish it?
Right.
You know, it's like, wow, I kind of want to hire you. And I think sometimes, you know, observation beyond just people. Whitney brought up a really good one about trees. So you were saying, like, you know, if you really kind of just sit for a little bit and look at a tree, right?
Right. If you just look at a tree, we all do this every day. We look at a tree and we're like, oh yeah, I know it's brown on the bottom and then it's got green on the top. That's a tree, right? And
at a basis level,
right?
That's what the world says a tree is,
right? That's what, if we're following the straight line, that's your basic tree. Like, yeah, it's got some branches, it's got some bark, it's got some green, there's some dirt, like there might be a lizard on it, like, basically that's what it is. But if you stop a minute and you like really look at that tree, you'll see like, oh, that bark isn't just brown, it's got gray and black, and you go up the tree and you're like, man, look at those branches. The branches are like, they don't just go straight out. There's like branches that go like up, and there's branches on the bottom, and there's these little bud things on the branches, and like there's so many of them. There's not just like a few of them holding it up, and there's big ones and there's small ones. Well, at that point, when you're observing this tree, you're seeing so much, so much color, so many different shapes and lines and ways, and at that point you're engaging the creative side of your mind as you're like engaging and observing this tree that you see all the time, every day, everywhere.
Right. And I'm gonna give you God has come on me and he's gonna give me something. I want to give it to somebody here. If you're in this place, first I have to let you know, there's the way of the world, what we were told to do things, how to do things, what rules to follow, like don't make messes, like, choose the path that is of least resistance because that's the easiest. And then you have the opposite of that. I want you to think of two different trees. I want you to think of a tree, whether it's at a park, it's in your yard, or it's on a street avenue where you live. And where a crew comes out every 3 months and they trim this tree and they manicure this tree to be a certain way. I imagine if you think about that tree for a little bit, it looks like most of the other trees around it. They're all like nicely groomed. There's no low-lying branches. Everything's kind of like pointing into a nice circular pattern. And of course, depending on power lines going through it, might depend on what it looks like. But let me tell you about this other tree. The tree known as I Am. It's in the wild. It's in the forest. If you get off the main pathway, that mainstream pathway, and you get onto a trail and you see a tree that's been in nature that hasn't been altered, it's very different looking. It's much wider. It's as wide as it is tall. Versus the mainstream tree that's been manicured is tall but not wide. And your creativity is like a circle, and you're the being inside that circle, and so you are as tall as wide with creativity because it is like the world, it is round. But if you stay in this system of being manicured and having certain branches cut, you're being limited. And so starting in a place of observation allows you to start realizing, am I allowed to grow? If I am a tree, am I allowed to go in the direction of the sunlight?
Right.
Or am I being trimmed back and saying, no, get back in the box. Stay in this realm. No. If you go too far over here, you'll step in the other tree's way. We don't want to do that.
Right. That's like a really good example because, like, if you're the tree that's always being trimmed into a circle and, you're for in a real life example, let's just say that you paint canvases and you're an artist that likes to do portraits. right? You do like realistic portraits. But you look out and you see, oh, it looks like the market is these abstracts. And you're a realistic portrait artist. Well, if you're going to live by the tree theory the example we just talked about, you're going to go like trim yourself up and try to like be another tree in the line of abstract canvas.
Right.
And it's going to be difficult and it's going to be hard and you're going to get burned out because your true real self wants to be a portrait artist.
Right.
Yeah. So your branches essentially at that point would look like they're sticking out in the market of the sea of trees that have been trimmed circle.
Right.
And hey, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Right.
I think that sometimes we get caught up in our mind like, oh, what color will people buy? What color are they putting in their house? What kind of artwork do they want? How can I make the sale? How can I make the sale? I need the money. And sometimes if we just focus on being the tree that is out in the wild and growing in the ways that we were meant to grow, we'll make the sales.
Right, because if you go back to the core self, right? It's like for me, I'm a motivator. And then you have people, their core value is an artist. But their assignments are different in the arts. One is sculpting for a season. One may be a portrait artist and they might try abstract.
Right.
Like there's nothing wrong with trying it. No. But if you try it and you're like, this feels against who I am, then go back and how do you make your portraits different? How can you take those and bring it to the marketplace?
Right.
And make a difference.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. So we got one down, observation. And that's probably the easiest one you can do. It doesn't require you to look within yourself.
No.
You're looking outwardly on things and seeing how things are different than the mainstream.
Yeah, one thing that, while we're talking about that, one more thing. Like, I know
we're not going to get to this list.
We are. We're going to get there. I'm going to make it hurry up. One quick thing that you can do, I know we have, like, a lot of, like, busy schedules, and, I have 3 kids, and, like, things are crazy. But we are always in a car, and we are always driving, and you can, like, really just take in the color of the cars around you.
Yeah.
Or you can, like, just look up at the sky and really look at the color. Focus on the color that's in the cloud. And those are just really quick, simple, little 1 minute, like, on your walk to the car. Like, really look at the cloud.
It's 1 minute.
Right.
It's not like you're sitting there for 4 hours,
no.
like, just watching waves come in and trying to document how they're different. It really is. It's just a minute here and there. It's just be open.
Yeah. If you're sitting at your desk at work, I mean, just look down at your hand and, like, really look at all of the lines in your hand for, like, a minute. Like, just observe all of the lines in your hands. Like, get lost in the lines of your hands. And, like, if you do that throughout the day for a minute at a time, like, just observing, it'll really start sparking that creative, like, flame.
So.
Okay, next one.
Well, first off, stop looking at your hand, folks. Because I'm sure everyone, I did. I'm looking at my hand like squirrel syndrome. Like, oh yeah, we're supposed to cover a list here. But I really like how you bring that because our hands are not the same.
No.
And compare it. If you have a spouse, if you have a friend or a relative, somebody, compare your hand to someone else. Actually, you can compare your left to your right. They're completely different.
Exactly.
It is crazy how different the lines are. All right. Next topic, let's go with dreaming and curiosity. With this one, I don't mean like, go take a hard nap. Go take a load off. Go sleep. Dream. What would you want your life to look like? What is something that you feel is missing? Like, what is that common thing on the daily that you're like, I wish I had more of blank, or I wish I could do blank? And get curious with that. Really think about what would your life look like that. You can even take us into individual things. I feel like Whitney's you got something?
No, I think this is really good. I think that, like, sometimes dreaming is a little hard. So if you know that you enjoy, like, let's just say you work a job, you work for somebody and you work at a desk, right? And on a computer. but you just had a conversation with somebody talking about like mowing your yard, the way you mow your yard. I don't know why, like, my grandpa was, like, really into, like, the design of mowing his yard, right? He was really into that. And he could have a conversation with somebody like that. But he worked in an office setting, in a professional setting.
Right.
And so if you work in a professional setting like that and you know you enjoy something like how you cut your grass, then like just stop. When you find yourself talking about that and feeling like you're excited or you enjoy that, just stop a minute and get curious.
Right.
What if I cut the grass differently? What if I cut the grass for someone else? What would it be like if you cut the grass for a football team?
Right.
Like just start getting curious, because sometimes the word dreaming can be a little overwhelming.
Yeah, because the world says, "Hey, kid, get your head out of the clouds."
Right.
But I feel like we kind of have to go there.
You kind of have to go.
I am pretty sure Tesla would not be a thing if someone's heads.
No.
I mean, there are a whole group of people who had their heads in clouds. Google does it.
Right.
Google, I had heard this saying, like Google, their newest products that they come out with come from a 3-day conference that they give like their creative team employees, and they literally have them just like completely opposite of what you would think. Like not at desk, like it's beanbag chairs, like whatever. Complete comfort. You choose you do your thing, and that is where their newest products always come from. Is from when they allowed their creative teams to do that, and then they take those things, and of course, through the business process, they go from there. But yeah, it is like, hey, like you don't have to do it. And I think it's really, you brought up your grandpa and like about the whole cutting the grass. So passion comes before purpose. And passion is closer to like what your true self is. And I will argue we have more than one passion, which means you have more than one gift, right? And you will use certain ones, if not more than one, in your assignments that you're given. Assignments are like more of your purpose. Purpose changes over time, but your passions typically never do. But the fact that someone can be like, oh, I can go 20 minutes at any given time and talk about cutting grass. And people, if like for you, think about what is something that people say, oh, you always know so much about that topic. Man, it's so easy for you to get blank. Or whenever you walk into someone's house or into a store, what are some of the first things that you begin to pinpoint and look at and go, well, the candles in Target, like, they're not exactly color-coded the right way. That's different. That's actually a creative side of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So dreaming and curiosity really kind of allows that. Now, I don't think your grandpa, like working in banking and also have a lawn mowing business, I don't think lawn mowing business was a purpose of his, but he did have a passion for his grass looking good.
Absolutely. And he was passionate about, if you needed help, like getting your grass to look good, he's going to know how to help you.
He could have been an expert lawn consultant.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's a business
So
idea.
there you go. Just focus on, I really felt like I enjoyed having that conversation about grass. I wonder what it would look like if all I did was talk about grass. If all I did was mow grass. I wonder what would life be like if I was the grass expert in this town.
If all you did was talk about grass all the time, people would not want to talk to you. And here's the thing, that's a true thing. When you are living passion and purpose, people will begin to separate themselves from you, and that is completely fine.
No. People would want to talk to you because people have a problem with their yards, and they would want to talk to you about that. And you would be spending your time talking about what you wanted.
All right. All right, you pick the next one, Whitney.
Okay, so the next one, let's go with a change of environment.
Change of environment. So sometimes, and I don't want to say that it's a toxic environment. We don't have to go that deep.
No, it could just be routine.
It can be your routine. It could just be the type of job that you have. It could be, we have 3 kids, and they were all 3 were in diapers at the same time. And I felt like all we ever did was buy diapers, change diapers, and that's it. It was like all the time. It was just like constant like pampered boxes all over the place all the time. And it literally just got to a point where it was like, I am so sick and tired of seeing diapers. And now, 4 years later, like I see a box, it doesn't even bother me. But sometimes, like when you're in the going and the coming and just the constant of your day, you need a little bit of change of environment. And sometimes this could literally just be getting a moment of peace. Now, I know dads do this. They come home and it's the bathroom, it's the kingdom, it's the throne room. And you don't know how long dad will be there. And sometimes you might have to just, are you okay, sir? Dinner has been ready for 45 minutes, but you are nowhere. I can't believe
you're telling your secrets.
So all you dads out there, you know what I mean. But sometimes it's just getting to a place where you can allow yourself to start asking questions, to start dreaming, becoming curious, and also just, reflect. Reflection is a type of observation, and just begin to reflect on what parts of your day brought joy, what parts of your day were just like, just really didn't like having to deal with that.
Right. Yeah, and I think as an artist, for me, when I'm painting a canvas, one of the things I have found is like, if I remove myself and go outside or, away and then come back, I see it differently.
Right.
And then I think of something new and something, creative and different that I had if I just kept staring at the same thing. And then also a thing that I have found is like, take the painting. I mean, if you're doing like a whole huge large mural, you're not taking that. But if you take the painting or the piece of artwork and you take it into a different environment, so take it outside, look at it in the different light, or, a different room, on a different wall, against a different color, near a different whatever, then you start seeing that differently also.
Yeah. This it reminds me of a story from when I was a kid. So what you're kind of getting at here is what's called the frustration of creativity. And so like writers have writer's block, and there can be a creativity block, and it can be extremely frustrating for anyone at any level of creativity or where you're at. But I can remember whenever I was like maybe 10 or 12, somewhere in those confusing years of childhood, I had a neighbor, and his name was Scott, and he played in a rock band, literally like a touring rock band. He'd be gone for like weeks, and he'd show up for like a week, and then he'd leave again. And he used to pay me to mow his lawn, which is funny. He's your grandpa. I was like, my first business was literally like lawn care. I was like a 10-year-old, like mowing people's lawns. Like, just give me a $20 bill and I'll take care of your lawn. But anyways, I used to mow his for $15 because he like haggled me, like grown man haggling a 10-year-old, right? Like, what's the matter with you? But it really was really good because I wanted to learn how to play guitar. And this was like before YouTube.
Right.
This was like you had to buy a book, you had to pay for a lesson. I didn't have money for a lesson. But so when he would come once a month, he would give me a lesson on guitar. And then that was like the discounted price that we did for like the lawn care. And I remember the thing that he always told me over and over and over again is he said, playing guitar, which I argue is a creative thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is frustrating sometimes. And when you're learning something new, it's more frustrating because it's not second nature yet. You haven't perfected it. You're still growing. And he said, when you get frustrated, put the guitar down, walk away, do something else, and come back. And he said 9 times out of 10, when you come back, you'll get the lick.
Right.
You'll be able to pull off that riff. That strum pattern you're working on will be down.
Right.
And it literally was always true. And I think that really applies to anything in life. Is like, you know what? I'm at a level where I feel more frustrated than creative. It's time to walk away.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes we might not even notice that we're frustrated or tense or, high strung or burned out or unmotivated or, whatever it is. And so if we can just, like I was writing really well and then all of a sudden I can't write anything. Like nothing's coming out right at that point, then take a second and change your environment. Observe something while you're changing your environment and then come back and let it flow.
And if it's parenting, choose your battles. I mean, sometimes it's like, okay, I'm becoming extremely frustrated with this individual. I've told them 5 times.
Parenting itself is a whole creative element.
Oh, parenting is nothing but sales, folks. It's nothing but sales.
And
all
you gotta
you're
get
doing
creative.
is sales.
You gotta get creative to sell your thing. And sometimes you gotta walk out of that room.
Yeah, and if you got more than one kid, then you understand what a niche is. Because how you handle one kid is not like the other.
Okay, so as you can tell, we can teach marketing also.
I see a course in the future called Marketing Like a Parent.
That's right.
That's awesome.
All right, so change our environment. What else?
Yeah, so far we've covered observation, dreaming and curiosity, and also changing your environment. The next one I want to go with is asking questions. So it's something I used to teach my students. And this applies to adults as well, and I use this technique with just about anyone who's trying to figure something out. Now, Whitney hates it when I do this.
Just saying, I don't think
What am I doing?
I have nothing to say about this.
What am I going to say? Do you know?
When I ask you something, you ask me something back.
Ding, 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 ding. That's it, folks. All right, podcast is done. The show is over. Yeah, that's right. Like, I used to teach my students, I call them kids because it felt like they were kids, but I used to teach them, and now we even do it now in our business with our adult students.
And our customers.
Our customers and our own children.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Right.
And honestly, you should do it with yourself. Here it is. Ask questions. Because you want to look at a situation or a thing from a different angle. You need to look at it from all the way around. Like, so I'm going to break this down to an easy story, okay? You are car shopping, right? You are not going to just walk out blindfolded, touch a car, and then find a salesperson and say, okay, this is it. This is the one I want. Like, no one does that. You go and you look all around the car. First off, you go look at hundreds of cars at 10 different car lots. And then you go back to find the ones that kind of stuck out to you.
At this point, you're in overwhelm.
Yeah.
And you don't even want to spend any of the money anyway.
4 wheels and an engine, please. But, if you're looking at that 4-door sedan, you're going through, you're thinking, okay, I like the color. The inside, I can do, it's not my favorite color upholstery, but I can do it. It's doable. It's not bad. It's not great. It's good. I can settle with good because this is the Chevy Malibu I wanted. All right. And the price is a little high. I'm going to have to figure something out here on this price. What do you do next? You test drive it. Right?
Oh.
What do you do next? You just buy it?
I was going to say, I'm going to ask them if they're going to do a better deal before I waste my time driving it. Okay, so obviously we're not going car shopping together. No. You can go car shopping and I'll come test it when you find the good one.
So this is, price or test drive the thing, right? But either way, you're doing one of these two things because you can only see what's on the outside. Now you kind of know, okay, what's on the inside? How does it run? And at that point for me, maybe not Whitney, but for me, then I'm like, okay, look, I could tell the fuel filter's bad. I'm going to need to get a new one, so let's get some price off this piece. So the idea here is that, you begin to ask questions. Now, in that situation, you're asking questions in your head. Okay, is this the right color? Is the price correct? It's not quite the size engine I wanted.
Do I want to spend that much?
Right. Well, I even get approved for the credit. But in creativity, it really is the same process. So if you are sculpting something and you are trying to make a vase or a vase, however you say it, you might be looking at a reference picture, right? But what if, I know Whitney's going to say something about canvas painting because she does this all the time. What if you look at your reference upside down? What if you take a different angle? What if you take a different approach or technique to that piece, because the whole idea of creativity is uniqueness. And uniqueness is one of a kind. And when it comes to the marketplace, people love unique and one of a kind. And your true self is different than anyone else. Like the lines on your hand, your fingerprint is completely different than anyone else's. So if your fingerprint is different than anyone else, then why wouldn't your soul or your heart be, or your gifts inside? They are. Your fingerprints are just a visual outward place where you can see, I am different from everyone else. I was made unique. Therefore, I have unique gifts tailored to me. Now, Whitney, you like to do a lot of abstract art. Mm-hmm. So go ahead, tell us the story. Tell us the breakdown of what you do with every single one of your abstracts.
There's a story?
Well, you have 1,000 stories.
I get a canvas and I start with some idea in my brain. Like, I see something. Okay, let's just go with this story. One time I just had this random idea. I was going to paint this different Christmas tree. And so, but it wasn't going to be red and greens. It was going to be like blues. And so,
like a snowy midnight.
I don't know.
Scene. Okay.
So I had these like blues, and I was putting the paint on the canvas and gearing towards like painting my Christmas tree. And I have this background in there because my tree is going to be like on the front of my background. And I didn't draw anything out ahead of time or anything. I was just going with it. And so I have all my blues on this canvas, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, this looks like a night sky, and I could make this water right here. And that Christmas tree ended up as a, like, sailboat crashing in waves.
Okay, yeah, I remember it.
Yeah. And so, as I was going, right, I started with an intention, an idea of a specific thing. But as I was going, I stopped and I was, like, asking myself questions, like, throughout it of, you know, I really like the way that the blues are blended here. What if this, like, really looks like a crashing, like, you know, water, a night sky. Okay, well, I mean, at this point, I can abandon ship and not do the tree and just keep going. And as I go, I just kept asking questions. So when I paint, sometimes, that's how it goes. So I initially started with a color palette because of this idea I had. But as I went, I asked questions, and the whole course of everything changed. And I ended with a completely different painting that is now a joke. Like, this is a common thing that happens with me. Like, I don't even think anybody asks me in the beginning anymore, what are you painting? Because everybody knows, like, I could say a Christmas tree, and by the end it could end up as a ship, because I am open to asking questions as I go, instead of being fixated on making sure that it turns out perfect. It stays exactly like I planned to begin with. And I have to say, like, the process for me, like, asking questions and creating, like, what it wanted to be is so much easier than me trying to just stick with the path that I originally intended to set. Like,
you know, it's what it reminds me of is sports teams. They almost always go into the halftime and they change up their plan, especially if they're losing. Now, you had all intentions of doing one thing, but because of your curiosity and your observations, which then drawn you to questions, your intentions began to shift and to change, and you went with the creative flow.
I let my creativity come out and play rather than trying to be that manicured tree. that is a circle.
Creativity is really a lot like a river. It just flows. The water comes here, it goes there, it rises, it goes down, the tides come in, they go out. But if you dam a river, it becomes a lake.
Right.
And you essentially, now the course of how the water acts has been shifted.
Right.
It no longer has that flow.
Right.
It can sometimes become stagnant. And so if you find yourself in your creative element and you're making, and you're like, I just really feel like I'm kind of out of whack. Well, maybe it's time to let the gates down. Maybe it's time to remove the dam. Maybe it's time to move into a different river. Mm-hmm. Get in your boat. Get in the sailboat.
Right.
Whether it's crashed or
not.
And go downstream, because there could be better water down your way.
Right.
A new season and a new assignment.
Right.
Sometimes when we begin to feel stuck in something, it can be our assignment changing. And if we want to push against that, we're going to start losing our creativity.
Yes.
But if you harness it, you can start going and shifting and be going into a new season. You have to be open and available.
Right. I think absolutely whenever we feel like, discontent in whatever way, or things are hard, or it's just missing, or it's just lost, or then we probably are trying to dam it up, or, make it be something rather than just exploring, well, what would happen if, because when I am doing that painting, I get to a point and I'm like, okay, do I want to alter course here? Do I really want to end with a Christmas tree?
Right.
And then I start going into curiosity of, well, what would it look like? What would happen if I try to go this other route and it doesn't work out?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when you get these blocks in your creativity, which we made a course on this, it's a mini course, and we absolutely love it, but we really felt like, hey, this is a thing that happens, and most people can overcome their blocks. A lot of people don't, but we don't want anyone to get left behind. We don't want anyone to get stuck in the lake behind the dam and not feel like they can still live a purpose and an assignment with their creativity. And so we had put together this Unblock Your Creative mini course because, sometimes when we get discouraged, we need someone else. We need a little bit of mentorship. We need a little bit of reconnection and sometimes more clarification on where we should be going. And when we made that course, that was the whole intentionality of it was, I don't want to be stuck in a place where I can't create freely. So what can I do? Who can help me? Who can I look to that's there and have my creativity begin to flow again?
Right. And I think a lot of times if we just understand what the majority, what is the base that causes this? Mm-hmm. If we just have an understanding of that, then when we get into this place, because we're going to get into this place, as much as we would like to live in a creative state all the time, we're just not. Right. We're just not. We're gonna get blocks, we're gonna get burnout, we're gonna, get the discouragement. It's gonna happen. So if we can understand ourselves and understand a bottom basis, meaning and reasoning it's happening, then our ability to use the tools to get us out of it, really relatively fast and easy, is so much greater, rather than if we don't reach for the tools. I mean, if we don't reach for the understanding, we're not going to be able to come up with any tools. And then we just get stuck working a 9-to-5 job that we no longer like, because we just don't understand to apply the tools that really could change it all for us super fast.
Right. So good. All right. So before Whitney teaches us this final topic, because she always has the best interpretation of it, I want to just recap the 4 things that we've already discussed. Number 1 was observation. Make sure that you're looking at things and seeing how are they different, how are they unique. How am I myself made unique? Observation can also be like, I'm feeling frustration. Let me move out of this area and come back to this. I'm beginning to understand that I feel a block and maybe there's a different assignment coming for me. I need to observe things to be open to that. Number 2 was dreaming and curiosity. It's really thinking of where do you want your craft to go? Where do you want to be in life? And begin to just kind of really think what that would look like and what your life would be if you were there. The third one is the change of environment. Sometimes we can get into a little bit of a stagnant place, a place that's a little bit more like A plus B equals C and not so much of C creativity and whatever letters you want to use today, go for it. And then sometimes it can just be like your daily responsibilities as a parent. Like you do have a lot to have to take care of and, making sure that you're using your time wisely instead of 3 hours of binge watching something. Maybe it's an hour of thinking creatively or practicing your creativity into something, and then maybe watch a show before bed. And of course, that fourth one is asking questions, kind of turning things upside down from a side here, looking at it from a mirror so that you can kind of see every piece of it outside in it. Now, our final topic that's going to help you really start tuning your brain into creativity.
Just play. Just play. Just focus on whatever it is that you're gonna do as play, practice, exploration. Don't put the pressure on of producing something or knowing it all or making it perfect or knowing before you go or being confident before you start. Just play. Just play with whatever it is. So one of our businesses is website and marketing. So with that, we're not sitting around using paint. We're not sitting around using art tools, but we have to be creative in marketing. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways that you strike gold is by playing. By playing with your words, by playing with your content, by playing with the way you're presenting your product, by trying this and trying that and being open to, different pictures and different services.
The pixels of the pictures.
Right, yeah. So when you're doing websites, play around, be open to changing the color and, sitting with this for a day or two and looking at it. And if you don't like it, then hey, you can change it, right? So, if you're painting furniture, just play, just practice, just put some paint on there because paint covers paint. Nothing is permanent. Hardly anything is permanent. You can sand it off. You can paint over it. You can change it. You can, change your job. You can, whatever it is, if you just focus on, I'm going to play. I'm just going to play around here and see what happens. And, a great way to do this is to get, a couple color pencils with colors that you feel like, hey, I like this. I like these colors today. Or some paint. Or, whatever it is.
Different grass seed.
Yeah. And just kind of experiment, right? Have a childlike mind and attitude and just play. And as you're playing, it's going to start growing into something else because you're allowing yourself to be creative and explore and experiment, and you're taking that pressure off of producing a product, producing something somebody's going to think is worthy, one-upping your last website, your last client, your last painting, don't put the pressure on making anything better.
Yeah.
Just play and explore. Use a different medium. Like, try, creating some graphics. Use, a different program. Like, whatever it is, just approach it as, hey, I'm just going to play with this for a little while. I'm not expecting it to be perfect. I'm not expecting it to be great. And it doesn't even have to turn out to be anything.
Right.
And most of the time, it will turn out to be something.
Right.
And if it doesn't, oh well, you spark that creativity that you're going to use to make something in another area of your life turn out to be something.
Right. Sometimes I kind of look at it as, when I used to coach high school track, we spent 95% of our time practicing.
Right.
For the 5% show.
Right.
And you need that. But I want you to understand is like sometimes in art, you're probably doing a little more producing. It's probably way more than 5%. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's okay to go over and just get some, like a scrap piece of canvas or whatever, and begin to practice your craft. Because what we call that warming up, and we call it stretching. And in your creative side of your brain, the parts of your brain and the types of chemicals that are being released in the practicing will begin to start kind of lifting in your inner creativity, and that will come out into your finished product.
Right.
So we're super excited. I thought this was an awesome episode. If you thought it was awesome, we would love it if you left a review. But I want you to do something a little bit extra. I want you to leave a review, and I want you to pinpoint which of the 5 steps do you think was most helpful and why. Because when you choose one and you write about it, you're telling yourself, hey, this is how I can unblock. This is how I can become a creative. So maybe you are a good dreamer. Maybe observation is your thing. Maybe you just like to practice all the time. Or maybe you're like, I really like the idea of like car shopping. Asking different questions, looking in a different way. For me, it's a change of environment. I got to get out of the same mundane and get into something that's a space for me to create. Whichever 5 it was, go ahead and leave a review. Let us know which one and why you liked it. And we'll be back next Thursday with another episode.
Well, hey, creative friends, we hope you enjoyed today's episode and you go take action in your business.
If you really enjoyed this episode, we hope that you definitely subscribe to us. And if you know some creative friends out there, go ahead and share to them. For next time, we'll be here, same time, same place.